Today we're going to turn this metal rod into these channel lock pliers.
The Channel Lock factory has been here in western Pennsylvania since 1886, and today it's going to reveal its secrets.
This video is not sponsored, I just like molten metal, red hot sparks, and of course, the color blue. Let's start back at the beginning.
The Channel Lock factory is fascinating. The robot blacksmiths give it a futuristic, hardcore steampunk vibe, all while residing in a 100-year-old structure with its original cobblestone flooring. It's a stoic monument of a building with an aura of historical reverence, while at the same time shaking the very foundations with the repeated drop of a 9-ton hammer. Every single pair of channel lock pliers starts out as a billet of high carbon steel rod. These hot-rolled rods are made right here in the USA, which means every part of these pliers bleeds red, white, and blue. Heavy emphasis on the red part as it comes out of the electric induction furnace, molten red hot and ready to be forged. Turns out the massive drop hammer isn't just hitting the hot rod at random, it's using a mold to sequentially add features and shape the metal. Each hit or impact forms the circular rod a little bit more until the final rough form of the pliers emerges. The heat makes the metal malleable, and all of the forming has to be done quickly before the metal has a chance to cool down and harden once more. Both the left and right sides of the pliers are done at the same time in the same mold. Fun fact, the ground beneath these hammers gets so pounded into oblivion that Channel Lock has to regularly rebuild the foundation under each of the hammers. It's a beast. But when you make millions of tools every year, you gotta do what you gotta do. There's a final stamp that removes the excess metal. This extra flash of material heads back to the foundry to get recycled into more billets. Then the left and right sides of the channel lock pliers get separated for the next step of fabrication. Channel Lock has rather eloquently blended the old and new over the last century, with some manufacturing cells run by humans and other manufacturing cells run by robots. To survive in the manufacturing world for more than 100 years, you gotta be adaptable to new technologies. And these robot arms can play hot potato around the clock. Channel Lock makes more than 75 different sizes, shapes, and types of pliers, but they all start with the same steel billet and get pounded into existence with the same types of hammer presses. Everyone in this section of the factory is doubled up on hearing protection for obvious reasons. It's wild to think that this all started with one man nearly 140 years ago selling handmade blacksmithing tools out of the back of his wagon. And now, 6 generations later, the same family, in the same spot, is manufacturing tools by the millions. Talk about a legacy. I know I've had a pair of channel lock pliers in my toolbox for at least a decade, but I had no idea the manufacturing process looked this cool. And we're not even done yet. The unfortunate problem with stamping and forging parts is now the material has work hardened and is more difficult to shape and machine, which means that Channel Lock has to put the entire bin of metal parts back into a furnace to anneal the metal. Annealing means that the metal is heated up, then allowed to cool very slowly. This reduces the internal stresses of the metal and makes the parts easier to machine, since that's where we're headed next. Not only do we have to punch out the channel of the channel lock pliers, but we have to mill out the pivot points and machine the tongue and groove portion. You know, the part where you can adjust the opening of the pliers to grip items of different sizes. The grooves have a super precise tolerance that can't be achieved through stamping. The grippy teeth also get ground into the pliers at this point. We'll laser harden these in a second, and yes, you did hear that right, there are lasers coming up. But first we have to clean up the exterior edges, removing any die lines or burrs from the stamping process. With so many variants being produced at this factory, some of the cutters are ground by hand with humans, and others, like our tongue and groove pliers, are mounted on a turntable, which rotates into an enclosure with another large robot arm who's just grinding all day long, both literally and figuratively. There are smaller turntables for the little pliers and bigger turntables for the larger pliers. You can see the accumulating pile of steel dust from the thousands of pliers that get cleaned up inside of here every day. Humans aren't allowed in this enclosure while the robots are working, so this perspective is pretty exclusive. Thumbs up for that. I also forgot to mention that each of the metal bins that you see around the factory all have trap doors at the bottom, so it's easy to unload massive amounts of parts quickly at each step of the process.
I've never seen so many in the same place at the same time. That's so cool.
Things have to move fast if you're competing on a global scale. Once all the machining is done, it's time to harden the metal back up again so it can survive the rigorous life of being a tool. This is done by heating the metal up in a super long oven on a super slow metal mesh conveyor belt. It's slightly antagonizing to watch the pliers inch closer and closer to a wall of fire, but they'll come out the other side of the flame broiler stronger than they are now. The technical name is called tempering.
As you can probably guess, this factory is rather warm inside because this furnace extends all the way down the room with thousands of channel lock pliers going all the way through the machine as they get tempered.
Instead of letting the metal cool off gradually like we did last time around, this time around the tools get instantly quenched in an underground bath of molten salt. The instant quenching or cooling of the metal increases both its strength and hardness at the same time. Just like humans tense up in an ice bath, the internal structure of the metal tenses up permanently during quenching, so it's ready to handle the lifetime's worth of work that it has ahead of it. Using salt instead of oil or water gives channel lock more control over the temperature of the quench. Science is cool. I am curious to see if this old school wagon wheel fire extinguisher still works, but we'll have to save that for another video. Since the salt bath is underground, we only get to see the metal coming back up from the depths as it gets rinsed off. Then it goes straight into the laser. This part is really cool because channel lock just throws everything in here on the conveyor belt at the same time, and tells the robot arms to figure out which tool is which with their vision guidance system. The robot arms snag a tool off the moving conveyor, and then using laser beams add an extra hardening layer to just the teeth of the pliers, making the teeth more wear resistant and abrasion resistant. This lasering process goes a step above and beyond normal pliers and is what helps channel lock pliers last for so long out in the field. Once the tempering process and laser hardening are finished, it's time for tumbling. The metal sides are still not connected together yet, and this tumbler and the aggregate inside gives the pliers a clean, uniform matte texture. The sides are then mated up with each other and sent through a belt sander and lasered one last time, with the channel lock logo. A large rivet is then pressed into place permanently, joining both halves together forever. At this point, the bare steel is, bare steel, which means it's unprotected from the elements. Channel lock sends the bare pliers through a sequential hot water cleaning bath, and then into what looks like a big vat of milk. But it's actually a clear coat. The clear coat helps keep your pliers rust-free if they're ever left outside or you're working in the rain. The clear coat cures in an oven before coming out for the final step of the process, and the pride and joy of channel lock, the non-slip blue rubberized coating. All the pliers get dipped into the warm blue bath at the same time. Turns out that channel lock has trademarked this specific color of blue, which is impressive. It's very difficult to get a color trademarked, and only a few other companies have accomplished it, like Owens Corning and their pink insulation, or the teal color from Tiffany Diamonds. Channel lock literally owns the shade of blue in the tool space. But between this and Tiffany's, I know which one I'd rather have. And that's how channel lock tongue and groove pliers are made. From raw American steel through a factory here in the USA, straight into toolboxes around the world.
And there you have it, channel lock tongue and groove pliers made right here in the USA. This factory has been amazing, and for all your gripping needs, you can head to channellock.com or anywhere where tools are sold here in the USA. And thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.